this is Frank, and today I'll be working on this dog that I drew, and I have to color it in now. So I created two layers, and they're just duplicates of the drawing layer. But what that allows is for me to have a backup. So I'm just going to paint this in really quick, and well, maybe not really quick. By the time this thing loads up, I'm surprised it took that long just to get that far. That's because I'm recording at the same time, so that slows everything down. And then over here, I'm going to paint this layer the same color, and then the tail, and then the leg. Just wait for that to load. And then the tail, and then the leg. Normally the program will load faster, but the recording really puts a lot on the system. Alright, so I'll color the eyes in white, because if I don't, you'll see just, well, I better not do that. You'll see just a blank spot where the white should have been. There it goes. There's that. And let's see, next thing I'll do is the nose, which will be a little bit darker than the gray, the brown gray that I have there. So that'll be maybe like that. No, that's too light. I could adjust it later on, but might as well just do it right now. Yeah, I guess that's okay. Maybe it's a little too much. Yeah, that's better. Just not too much. Alright, so here's the tongue. That's fine. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then go back to the original color. Oh no, actually, for the tooth, I'll go with that. That's fine. And then for the fur on the front, I'll just do that. Alright, so now that would be fine if it was like cell animation, but I'm really going to add a lot of detail to this, so let's see what I can do here. First thing I'll do is select by color tool. I'll just click outside of the character, and that automatically gets in between all these little spaces, and then I'll do select invert, and that'll select everything inside. So now I could do this two different ways. I could paint it on, or I could excuse me, use the burn or dodge tool. But for more accuracy, I think the paint would be better. For the highlights, the dodge tool would be good. Alright, so the first thing I like to do is the shadow, and know where all the shadows are. So let me start there, and opacity, I'll take it down to maybe 25. And the size of this is way too small right now, so I'm going to do that. Now I have to find the light source, and she's looking to the right a little bit here, so that would be a good place to have the light source. If I have the light source on this side, it could still work, but then you're at an angle here, and that would force some shadows here on the face from the ear, maybe. Well, unless it was in front up here. But I think I'll just go on the right. So that means the shadow will be on the left. So I could start here and go like that. And then for this ear, that'll be filled in with a bit of shadow. then I have to be careful not to let this pen go, otherwise you'll create double shadows because it's translucent, transparent to some degree. Alright, and then there's the main shadow cast from the face of the dog. And then I'll vary that up just slightly, and then the shadow cast from the body of the dog itself being being within the shadow, outside the light, and that would include that right there, and maybe even the tail. And then one thing I did learn was, if you don't want the object to stand out, put it in shadow. So let's say you wanted just the focus on the face of the dog, you could technically have all the rest of the body in shadow, and that's just a more creative way of using shadows. But right now I'm not worried about that. That's just if you wanted the eye to go to just a certain point. But this drawing is just a fun sketch. Well, not a sketch, but a fun drawing. Nothing too serious here, so not going to worry about the placement of the shadows, other than just light source on the right. So that simplifies it. Alright, so now that the ears are starting to form with the shadows and give more dimension, I'm going to have to start to reduce the size of this brush. It's a little too awkward right now for getting in here with the face. But before I do that, let me just give a just a cast of shadow right here, maybe. Just on the side of the face, to give a little more variation to the face, so it's not so flat looking. And that would include, let's see, part of this here and a lot of this here. And then the tongue, we'll put the tooth in the shadow. And then maybe right down there. And now I'll go to my smaller scale brush, like that. Now I could go in here and fine tune some of this, some of the shadows. Looks like I missed a spot there. I can't go back in and adjust it. Oh wait, there it is. Yeah, I have to. Brush is just a little too small here. There, that's good. And then let's see. And what I'm thinking is, just as I go through each line, I'm just looking at the lines and thinking, okay, where would the shadow be for this line and that line, and I proceed that way, one step at a time. And then you can look at the whole image and just get an idea that way. Just visualize what the shadows might look like that way. In other words, I look at the dog and then I visualize what it would look like when it was finished, and I could see there would be highlights on here, there would be some light casting in from between the ears a little bit, And that'll give me a direction to go in with the visuals. But let's see, for this here, I think I'll go back to a larger brush, not too large, and then come back in and just do this here. Give it a little more darkness there. Now I don't want it to look cell shaded, so I have to be careful not to go too many layers here. So that's what I'm thinking about right now. Like, well, if I do cell shading, that's not really what I'm going for here. I'm going for like a fuzzy, furry type look, and I might add like a texture to this later on. You just take a texture, like of a maybe furry texture, and put it over the whole size of the dog, and then make it transparent, and then just collect this outline and cut out the outer edge, like cut and paste, and then just vary it a little bit. Alright, so next thing I'll do are the highlights. Now here's where I could use the dodge tool, or I could use the white brush, but let me just see how it goes with this. And one thing I like to do is do duplicate. This way I have a progress of how the drawing's progressing, so I can go back and say, oh well, that's how it started and that's how it finished. Alright, so this brush is way too big. It might be too strong of a opacity right now. Alright, and I messed that up already. I have a fuzzy brush, so that's going to allow for a little more realism versus a cell shaded line. Alright, so here we are here. That's better. And this is more like a brush, where you have to actually apply enough steps to where it picks up when it's at a lower opacity like that. Now I have to be careful I don't create like circles here, so I have to really think about that line. And one thing to remember is when I'm doing the face of creating the face of the dog, I have to remember that where I put the highlights is really critical, because that's what's moving forward in the picture. So if I put the highlight in the wrong spot, that part of the face is moving forward and it'll just look weird. I noticed that when I was learning how to shade, and I was like, why does that look so weird? And then I realized, well, it's because you have the highlight in the wrong spot. You can see the highlight really takes the drawing to the next level. And this is this is not reflective light here. This is actual light hitting the fur. This side would be reflective light from the other part of the room. And against the black line, you could lose some of the effect of it. So I could reduce those black lines, but I'll do that in maybe a little bit later, because I'm still putting all this together. Alright, so next thing I'll do is the tongue, now that I'm looking right at it. And the tongue has these little spots of light that would be like really bright, almost like See, that's not bright enough. So I'll go to my brush and almost like full opacity and just go right in there. Kind of like that. Not too many, just enough to make it look like a wet surface. And then I can reduce the opacity for the edges. Maybe do something like that. Now this is all out of my head, so I'm just trying to visualize what reflective light on a tongue would look like. And the little sparkles and sometimes you'll see like a reflection of a wet surface, and there's just like a total solid piece of white reflecting the light. So it looks weird sometimes, but that's how it is in real life too. But there's so many subtle variations to it. It's pretty amazing when you really study light and the way it acts on different surfaces. Alright, so I'll go back to my dodge tool and let's see here. I'll go right on the nose area and bring that forward, and then this side of the face, just pull that forward a little bit. Let's try to add a little effect to this. Here I'll just bring this forward a little bit too. One thing I learned also is sometimes I overdo it with the shadows. So sometimes there are too many shadows where it's too dark and you lose the essence of the fur or whatever the character looked like. So I had to be careful of that too. Alright, it's getting there, slowly but surely. And right now I'm just like doing like speckled lines here to just break up the smoothness of the fur. Make it look a little more fuzzy. Make it a little less perfect. Alright, so there's that. I don't want this too bright over here because that's the lower part out of the light. And then here I want this like not as bright either. Sometimes I get carried away with the brightness on every spot when you don't really need it on every spot. So one thing you could do if you find that you've gone too far and put too many highlights, too many spots, is just go back in and add more shadows over the highlights. See, the white's a little too strong right now for the shading, so I have to try to reduce that a little. Alright, now that I have that, and what's nice about this tool is you could let's say I didn't have the line highlighted where I wasn't selecting this character, you could just go right outside the line and nothing will be drawn outside the line, because it's self-contained. It's only affecting the colors that are already there. It's not actually a paint. It's just highlighting the paint that is already there. So you can't, like with a brush, you'd be able to just paint right outside the lines, and that would make it look weird. So this part here, let me just give a little more roundness to this, and that's what a highlight does. It makes it have more dimension. But I want to be careful because I don't want to get rid of all the shadows. So it's a fine line to tread when adding highlights. Like here, I know there's a shadow there, so I should not put a highlight there. Instead, I could go to my my burn tool and start collecting the shadow right in this spot here. And this is not working fast enough, so I'll increase the strength of it. Like that. Now this could get carried away really fast, so I have to be careful. And the tool just burns right there. You see a big spot, so I have to even that out. I didn't want just one dark spot there. And then here, sometimes you can run into a challenge where it covers just a certain blotchiness to it, so you have to even it out a little bit. But I really enjoy this process. It's a lot of fun. It's a fun challenge to color in. Is it as fun as drawing the character itself? And the reason I didn't show the drawing process is because I had to get the look of it just right, so I didn't want it delayed by the recording process, so that's why I drew it ahead of time. Now I'm just coloring it in. Alright, so here we go with this part here. Like for example, if I kept shading this in until it was like almost the same darkness as the darkest part of the character, you'd lose the whole sense that this used to be a white patch of fur. So that's why you don't want to go too far with the shading. See, I'm losing the whiteness there, and that looks blotchy too, not the way I wanted it. So for that, I'm just better off going in with a brush. Alright, well, not quite what I was going for here. That's what more like what I was going for, but it's not as smooth. So one thing you could do is use the blur tool, go to full opacity, and then just select that area and soften it up a little so it's not such a hard edge. That's not much of an improvement. One thing you could do is the smear smudge tool, and just maybe go something like that, just to break it up a little. I don't know, that didn't really work out. but it gives a sense of fur. Like fur is not a perfectly smooth surface, so I'll just leave it there for now. Alright, so next thing I'll do, let's see, I really want some strong reflective light from behind. So one thing I have to get the nose. I have to cover the nose now. So the nose, let me zoom in a little bit. Let's get some shadow in there. It's already established shadow, but I'll just put a little bit more in there. And now I know I was going for more realistic shading, but these black lines make it still look a bit cartoony, and that's definitely part of the goal. But I do want to reduce some of the strength of the black lines a little bit, so they're not too overpowering. Alright, so next thing I'll do is, let's see. Oh yeah, I have to go to the dodge tool and make sure I save my progress so I don't lose it all. Sometimes I'll work on a project and for like an hour I totally get lost within the project and forget about everything else. Well, I don't forget about it, but I just don't think about it, anything else. And then I realize, oh wait, I didn't save it. So then sometimes if I don't save it, the computer will crash or the power will go out and you lose everything. Or there's sometimes usually a glitch or something that happens. Computers are notorious for crashes and glitches. From my experience anyway. It's like the program itself, you could set the limit of how many megabytes it could handle or whatever, and then it still crashes. I mean, this is pretty rare these days. I haven't had many crashes at all for my projects. Alright, these are the highlights coming in here. This part here, maybe just a little reflective light there, and something right here, but I do want to add those white spots to show that there's moisture on this nose. So let me go in here and just add some white specks. Not a whole lot, just enough to make it look almost like a wet nose. And one thing I learned is the reflective specks are usually on the point closest to the light. Like the light's hitting that point, and that's why it's there. They wouldn't necessarily, like, you wouldn't have too many over here because it's in the darkness, but it could have a little reflective light if it's from another light source. But yeah, it's just good to look at it and study it, and that'll give you a better idea. Alright, so moving along, I do want to add some color to the eye. Let me just add a little pink for the eye. This way it's not like a perfectly white eye. Add a little color to it. And then for the tooth, I do want to add a little bit of reflection on there for the tip of the tooth, and maybe going down the tooth a little bit, like that. Not too much though, because the tooth should be in darkness, so it probably wasn't necessary to do that at all. So one way to resolve that is just go right over it like this with the shadow, because that's in shadow right there. Alright, so it's getting there, and next thing I have to do is shut off the other layer I had there, and I'll move this to the front. And next thing, let's see. I got that there. Maybe we could add some. Yeah, I think I could go in and add some texture, just manually add the texture to it. I don't want to get too carried away with this here, but I think this needs a coat of shadow just over the whole piece here. Something like that, maybe. Just to put more focus on the face and less focus over here. By this being in the darkness, your eyes are drawn up here. I don't want to make the dog have black fur, since it's like a grayish, brown grayish fur. And then I do want to adjust the color slightly, so I can do that a little later. Alright, so it's getting there. And let's see, I did want to come back in with a really strong reflective light. So I could go right with the brush. Well, not reflective light, but just highlights. Like really strong contrast. Sometimes it'll just be right at the edge and it won't progress past it. That kind of light is what I'm going for here. As though there's a light source from behind affecting it. And that's where I have to be careful, because I could get carried away with it and go too far. Then I have to consider, does this dog, the ears, can you see through the ears, and do they have like a shade to them, like a pink shade to the ears a little bit. So let me do that a little bit, give them a little more life, as though there's blood flow going through the ears, and that would be a lighter and larger brush, kind of like that. That's what I'm going for. And then maybe add that a little to the edges a little bit. It's a little too strong there, but I'll let it pass for now. Only because you know, those are thinner than the rest of these features, so that would have a little more transparency to it, so you could see that a little better compared to the rest of the dog. Alright, so now that I have that, I have to really look at it and say, is that what I'm going for? Is that what I wanted? And I'll say, yeah, that's getting there. This is a little weird here. This should be a little brighter. And it's good to look at your picture and really stand back and just think, okay, well, how's this? How's that? What could I do to improve it? So now I'll just go with this tool again, the dodge tool, and really hit this part here. Wow, that's too strong. Only because it looks flat over here, and this part should really be standing out since it's at the front of the face and the light is right here. So I'll just give it more strength with more white light. Yeah, that's more what I'm going for. Alright, so next thing I want to do is consider, let me just duplicate this layer. And now you can see the progress. It started off like that, and then I went in like this, and then I progressed to where I am now, like that. You can see it's really starting to bring it to life a little bit more. And there might be things that are messed up on this that I won't realize till later. And then I'll be like, oh, you know, that shouldn't have been like that, and then I need to go back in and adjust that. That happens pretty often. Sometimes you get so involved in the process, I sometimes don't detach myself enough from it, and then I lose the sense of what should have happened for a certain area of the face or whatever. And this part here, it's all in dark, so I do want that to have a little bit of light so the face outline is shown, so I could put a little reflective light on there on that side, and maybe under the chin a little bit too. And then this is a nice line right there, and then maybe one right here for the left leg. And then I'll just hit the tail really quick. And this reflective light is not as overpowering as had this been shaded just the same level as this. Alright, so I think I'm almost where I want to be now. There's not too much more to do with this. Just adding little details here and there. Oh, that line's not supposed to be like that. There we go. Alright, so now that I have all this done, I do want to go into this tool here, and let's see what this does. This dilate tool, this should make those black lines a little less powerful. And I do want to go back into the eyes and give them a little more volume. Oh yeah, I see what that did. Huh. Actually created some weird effects, but let's see what happens if I do that again. I can just undo it. Yeah, it's starting to create the weird effect of like white around the black lines. That's something to be careful about. So that first one looked good, I thought. Like that. I mean, you can still see some of it. But if I compare it to this, let's see what that looks like. Yeah, it's pretty subtle. It's not a huge difference. Alright, let me get the eyes now. I'll go in there and oh no, I can't use that feature. That really ruined it. Item visibility. Why is it on this? Item visibility. Uh-oh. See, that's not supposed to be like that. I don't know what happened there. Actually, the whole thing is like that. Huh. That's weird. Is there a... Oh, I know what's happening. There's a... I just have to duplicate this. Watch. In other words, when I look here, I see these white outlines around the black lines, and it looks really rough. So I'll just duplicate this layer and see how that fades away. That means that the lines weren't perfectly sharp at the edges, and that solved it right there. And then I'll just merge it down into the one that I just duplicated. Only because that is a sign that when I painted it in, and I'll show it in just a second, see, it's even better now. Merge that down. Like, take a look at this. See, there it is. There's the problem. I'll duplicate that, and that'll get rid of the problem. See that? It cleared out those white lines around the black lines. And that's because when I painted it in with the paint bucket tool, it couldn't get into all the little smooth edges of the brush. So that's why I created that weird look. So I'll just merge down. But yeah, that's something to consider. That could really mess up the fine details of a drawing. So now this will have a better effect on the dilate tool, where I could come back in and reduce some of the thickness of those black lines a little bit. Make it look a little bit more natural. In other words, on a real dog, you wouldn't see black lines surrounding the dog, but that's part of the cartoon look. But I'm just reducing it a little bit with this dilate feature, which is really cool. It softens everything up and gets rid of the hard edges a little bit. But you have to be careful because it'll create white outlines if you go too far with it. Alright, so now this foot here is a little flat. I can just give it a little bit more dimension, just like that. There we go. Alright, so now that I have that, I want to go back and get these eyes. I keep talking about it. So let me take a look here and think about where the pupil is, and then I want to create I think this dog's eyes might be brown, I'm not sure, but I'll just make them like a brown, or you could go with gray. That's fine too. So maybe like that, and then make the pen size a little smaller because I have to get around the pupil, which is going to be in the dark. So here I'll just start here and curve around. This side I'll put more strength here, and then just fade it out over as I get this way. But you can see there's like a pupil now. Just a simple little effect like that could really bring out the eye. And then you could add lines to it if you want to make it look like a iris. And then if you want, you could even add a little white highlight in there. So I could go down with the pen even more and just do something like that. Just to vary it up, make it look a little more rough, not so smooth. And then if you really want to play with that, you could go with the line, reduce the line, and just make like little lines in there. Maybe kind of like that. Just to make it look more like a real iris when you look real close. Alright, yeah, that helps a little bit. And then now that I have all this done, the nose looks a little too busy there. I can smooth that out a little bit. In other words, a little too much going on. So let me smooth that out. And use this smear tool. Which is not the right tool to use. Yeah, that didn't work out. I went in there thinking, oh, I'll just extend the white and smooth it out so it's not so speckled. But it didn't really do it. It didn't work like I thought it would. It's nice you have all these undo buttons. Alright, so rather than do that, I don't want to bring any more focus on it. So I don't want to lose the value of the nose. So let me just go here and add some highlight over here. Just to smooth that out so it's not so speckled looking. That's a little better. Maybe something like that. Alright. Yeah, I'm kind of getting carried away with this drawing here. I have to remember I have to finish this. I could spend hours just going over the fine details. Alright, so now I'll go with color balance. And I still haven't added a texture. I might add that afterwards. I have to find a texture to add, like a furry texture or something like that. If color balance will show up, there it is. Alright, so I'm going to add a little more red to this. Let's see what's going on here. Oh, there it 5 hours later, it finally updated. Alright, maybe a little more yellow. Now I have to determine, is that closer to what I'm going for? Not quite. I'm going to cancel that out. One trick I could do for shading is go duplicate layer, and now I can just go adjust the color through, let's say, colorize. Now there's a trick. I'm not deleting the layer underneath. I'm going to adjust this to the color I'm going for, more like a gray brown, and that's achieved by reducing saturation and having there it is, it's more like what I'm going for, almost like a slight brown tone, and then maybe reduce the lightness of that. It's a little too light. I think that's it. That's kind of, yeah, that's the color I'm going for. So now you look and say, oh, well, now how are you going to get the other features back? And you just go with your eraser, and you could go full opacity or reduce it to half. But for the tongue, I want that full. So now it's a good idea to get really close in there. See what I'm doing. See, I don't want these to be like this brown color, because they're supposed to be this color. Like the tongue. Alright, so that's that. And then, like if it was a cat, you'd see like little bristles on there for the tongue itself. And then now I'll have to decide, like for this, let me zoom out a little again. Then I have those key features there. I have to go back in here, and remember I want that pink to show through the ear. So I'll just cut right into there. But yeah, that's more the color I'm going for, the more almost like brown gray. So I do want some of the gray to shine through, so let me go into the dark and just reduce some of the brown in the dark spots. Just a little bit. That's good. Alright, so now that I have this, I have to really think about this drawing. And next layer is a fun layer, and it's let's see, was I supposed to, oh yeah, I'm supposed to merge this down. See, that's what I had before, like that, and that's not quite the right color, so now I'm adding this brown. The only problem is it reduced some of the highlights. It weakened some of the highlights because I made it a little bit darker. So I have to bring back some of the strength of those highlights without losing that brown color. Alright, this part here looks a little flat. Let me add some depth to that. Something like that. And sometimes it's good to be really bold with your decisions on the lighting, and just go really heavy in certain spots with the shading and the lighting to really bring it out and make it a really strong image if you can. And that's what I'm trying to do now. Trying to see where the lighting would go here. Alright, so now that I have all this, let's see, see, that's what I was talking about earlier. See how that's no longer even the color I was going for? It's supposed to be like a white. I lost all that by making it too dark. So it's safer to go in with my dodge tool and just pull up the light that way, like that. That's better. Alright, I could be here all day playing around with this. I have to make a decision now. Am I done? Am I satisfied? Alright, go in here, add a little more color there so the ears look alive, and then maybe add a little to the nose too. Maybe like that. No, that could really mess it up. Sometimes the nose is just one color and that's it. This looks a little too smooth here, so let me soften that up. Not too smooth, too hard edged. Alright. I think I have it. I think I have what I'm going for. Next thing I'll do is brightness contrast. So I'll do select none. I don't have to have it highlighted anymore. Actually, let me reselect. Edit, undo, select none. There's one thing I want to do with this before I stop, and that's to add, actually, what's going on here? Okay, I still have to merge this. Alright, now that that's merged, let me add the highlight reflective color. Let's see. It's good to have a background first to determine what that color would be, but blue is usually a pretty cool color to add for reflective light. Maybe something like that. Now this is a test, so let me duplicate it, make sure I get it the way I want it before I mess it up. Now this is not selected. I don't know what happened. Reselect the dog. is, do the invert, select invert. Now I'll go in with my brush, and for the back of the ear in the darkness, I'm just going to add blue, just a little bit. See, that's a little too much there. I have to be careful. And the brush is too big right now. But what this does is gives more color variation and actually brings it out a little bit more too. Because there's going to be a blue sky, so I do want to highlight that a little bit. And this is a neat effect to be able to do that, like in the shadows of your character. It's easy to get carried away with it, so I have to be careful not to go too far with it. Usually in the shadows you'll see it, but it really brings it out. I feel it's a really cool trick. It's not really a trick, it's just special lighting. Like I really like the way that looks. So I'll go even a little bolder to make it stand out a little more. Yeah, that looks cool. Alright, so now that I have that, should I get the tongue with a little bit of it? Yeah, why not, right? So that's about what I'm going for there. Alright, now I can do select none, and now that worked out, I could delete that extra layer because it worked. Now I'll just do a new layer, duplicate, and here's where, oh there, finally duplicated it. Here's where I'll go. I could do curves or brightness contrast. Sometimes it's just better just go right into brightness contrast. I mean, right now I'm looking at it, the picture, and I'm like, yeah, that looks pretty good. Maybe there's too much highlight here. It's affecting the highlight of the nose. I need to reduce this here, I think. So rather than go with that yet, let me dim that down a little bit. And I could just use this tool here, the burn, and just go 100% and just cut right in there. Like that. Because I don't want the nose to be at the same level that the forehead is. The nose is supposed to be further forward. The nose is supposed to protrude out further than that. So that's why I just did that. Is it perfect? Probably not, but one way I could alleviate that a little bit is now that I have some of that reduced, just go back in with the dodge tool and just hit a little bit of it. Maybe like that. Alright, so now I'll go finally with our brightness contrast, and now let's see what the extreme of it would be like that. You lose everything. There's no point in doing that. It looks kind of neat, but it's too extreme. So I'll go back in and now increase the brightness of it to match the contrast. And I have to determine, does this look better than what I had before? So the way to do that is to just do edit, undo. And I'm going to say yes, it looks better. Edit, redo. It makes it pop a little bit more. And this is where you could go into curves now and just say, well, it's a little too dark here. It's not a it's supposed to be like brown, not black. So you could click on the center and then on the left pull it up a little, and you can see how that lightens everything up in the darkness. But that's too much, so I have to reduce it. I have to decide, is that what I'm going for? I kind of like it better this way, like that. I think it looks good the way it is. Alright, so now that I have that, I'm going to bring in some backgrounds and piece that together in just a moment. Okay, now that I brought in these layers, what I could do is piece it all together and create a background. And in the background, the sky would be obviously the one piece that would be further back. So let me unlink it and scale it as I like. That, and create that piece there. There we go. The color of it is not what I'm going for, so let me adjust that. It's too faded of a blue. I want it nice, bright, almost like an aqua blue. If this thing will eventually load. So let me adjust the color, saturation, like that. There it is. Next thing I'll do is move on to the ground. I'll pull this actually this was going to be my texture, so let me duplicate this layer here. I just want to see what happens. This might not be the texture. I might just leave it as it is, because the fur on this dog is really smooth and I don't want to lose that. I don't think a texture is probably even necessary. But I just want to see what happens. Let me try something. So what I'll do, once this finally loads, is just see what this would look like had I added a texture for the dog. So I'll go into here, select that, select invert, now I'll pick the dog again. Then I'll just click right up on this layer. Oh, I messed it up. I have to go select invert again. Now I do edit cut. Now I'll get rid of the outside. That's what I wanted. Alright, so now that I have that, I have to color desaturate, because I don't want the texture to have any color since I already colored it the way I want it. But the only way I could do that is select none. Now I could do color desaturate. There we go. Next thing I'll do is opacity, like that. And now I'll determine, is this what I'm going for, yes or no. So let's look. I'll zoom in, and that adds a weird but kind of cool texture to it. I think it looks pretty neat. It really brings it out. I think that's cool. The only problem is the shadows are lost a little bit. Yeah, I do like that. That looks cool. So what I'll do is I don't want that texture to be too overwhelming, but another option rather than erase stuff is to increase the contrast of the texture like that. That's too dramatic, but and then maybe you can reduce the brightness of it, but that could affect your contrast too on the picture. So is that better? Is that worse? I think it was worse, so I'm going to erase that. And now I could erase it, or I could just go with our burn tool, increase the scale of it. And now, let's see, actually see how it's darkening the texture? And I'm not going to have that on the eyes or anything like that. But you do lose some sense of the lines with this, so I might just have to erase some of it. Yeah, like I'm losing the blue of the character. So I'm going to go in here, and of course I don't want the texture on the nose like that. I'll just erase the nose. And then the eyes, I don't want any texture on there. Oh yeah, you lose a lot of contrast. I mean, it looks cool and all, but I lost a ton of contrast with that. And the brightness too. So I don't know. You could always go half and just reduce half of it. Yeah, like I don't want to lose the strength of some of those lines. It would really help down here though, because some of it got lost in the darkness of it all. But some of that darkness is good though, because it really creates nice contrast. You can see this is a in-depth process. It's not just 1, 2, 3. It takes a lot of time and focus. It's a lot of fun though, so that's why I don't care. I'm just taking my time and enjoying the process. Alright, so now that I have that, yeah, I do like that. I think that looks cool. I'm gonna go with that. Merge down. So that's what it looked like there. Let's see what it looks like here. Yeah, I think it adds a lot of something a little more interesting to the look of it. Makes it a little more real. Alright, so now that I have that, do a save. Plus it helps bring out the eyes a little bit more. And it softens some of the rough edges out a little too. So yeah, I think that worked out. That's just my opinion as the artist for what I was going for. Alright, so now I want to create a lawn. I'll just do that. I created this earlier and all these textures earlier, actually years ago. And I just like to reuse stuff. That's the way I don't have to redraw it all over again. Alright, so now that I have that, I want to create a wooden fence surrounding this little yard here. So this dog stays within the border and doesn't border of the fence for the dog, so he doesn't get out and run into the street or anything like that. Alright, so there's that. Like I had a Labrador Retriever when I was a kid, and there was no fence to let the dog know, hey, you know, stay on the property, don't run off because you could get hit by a car. And unfortunately, my dog Shadow, we were playing ball, and I ran across the street to go get the ball, and Shadow was, oh man, it's just a rough story. But the good news is the car slowed down just enough so Shadow got up and limped to the side of the road and then back to the lawn, and then she was still walking around. And like when she got hit, it was the front bumper and it knocked her on her side, and you hear her yelp because it hurt. And then we took her to the vet, and the vet said, yeah, she's okay. And it really was a huge relief. I was so worried that she wasn't okay, that maybe she had internal injuries or something, but she was fine. That was such a lucky thing. Not everybody has the same luck. Alright, why is this, oh, okay, I know why. I want to use this tool to create a perspective. Yeah, that's why dogs are so eager to chase cars sometimes. That a fence really reduces the chances of that. Not all dogs, but some dogs. Alright, that fence I want to be in front of the grass, like that. Like, let's see. Alright, I have the clouds. Let me bring those up there. This would have took me another hour just to get to this point, probably, if I had to redraw all of this. But you can see how much time was saved. And this cloud here, let's see, I could go really bright like that, but there's something wrong with the cloud. It's too dark on the bottom, so I'm just gonna lighten it up here and just go like that. There, that's good. That's what I was going for. I don't want to lose the whiteness of it, but I do want to reduce the shadows. It's not a rainy day today, so. and then it's fun to just duplicate it and scale it down a little bit, move it a little over, just so it's not the only cloud in the sky. Maybe something like that, and then maybe down here. And that one I could do that for, so it's further back in the atmosphere. Now for the grass, let me give it a little more color. Yeah, that's okay. So the clouds are there. I'll put those way back here on the bottom so they don't get in the way of other layers. I'll throw a rock into this picture, and the rock I have, let's see, I have to bring it up forward like that. Now I'll put a like a little plant right here. Bring that over there. You can see the picture is starting to really develop now. And then I think that bush looks pretty cool, the plant. In terms of the texture and the style of it, and I think something needs to be over here, so let me do something like that. Move that over here. See, there's a trick to this. I want to make it look like it's in front of the dog, but I don't want to just have it here, because then it's like, well, what happened to the grass over there? So that's why I think if I put it maybe here, you'll get a sense that it's in front of the dog. But then you lose the look of the dog and the feature of the dog. So I don't know, I think I'm changing my mind about that. I'm gonna go put it in the back here, and maybe over here, like some big tree or brush or something. Then I have these plants here. I could probably bring these forward put them here like that. Next thing I have are the hills in the background. I'll pull those up here. I'll pull that cloud up a little bit more so I don't lose it. Now I'll go to the this layer I don't need. That was just another background layer. Alright, I'll bring some pebbles into this. This way the ground is not perfectly identical. And then throw some of them here. Duplicate it again, throw a couple here. Just to vary it up, break it up. Kind of like that. And then reduce the scale of it so they're not all the same size. then that thing in the background, the hill. Let's see, I have to colorize it. Wow, that's nice green, isn't it? Real bright and vibrant. And then, let's see. Maybe you just angle it a little. Oh, okay, it was already at a good angle. Never mind. Alright, I'll just reduce the height of it. And then I'll make it a little bit of an opacity to it so it fades into the blue atmosphere. And it's almost finished. Next thing I'll do is add some lighting. And where would I do that? It would be underneath the dog right here. So before I do that, overwrite. So I save it. Before I do anything else, this hill is too blue. So rather than go with that, let me adjust that color. Yeah, that's better. And then add more opacity. There we go. Alright, so I have what I want there. Oh yeah, I want to add shadows. So I do want to add shadows for the background. So let me do that here. New layer. Transparent. Now I'll go in with my brush, fuzzy brush, increase the scale, increase the opacity to the 30, the scale to 147 maybe, and now I'll just remember the sun is on the right side, so it's going to cast a shadow like this for the dog. Nothing too drastic, just a basic shadow. Like that. And then I could go in again and add some extras in there. And I could blur that out if I want. Next thing I'll do is go to the background. Let's see. I was going to make that a little darker here. Oh yeah, this is going to be in shadow over here. This piece here. Oh yeah, that had to be in front. That's in front. So this piece here, color brightness. This, instead of just creating a shadow on it and trying to get in the lines, I'll just do that. Now one thing I'm not satisfied with yet is the background's a little flat looking. So I do want to add those shadows now. Let me get back on there. Maybe that'll really bring it out more. So now that that shadow is established there, I can extend it out here a little bit. Maybe something like that. And maybe something right there. No, that's no good. I don't want it there. Maybe back here. Just to vary it up a little. No, it's not even necessary. That's fine. And then I did want to affect the fence so it's not so flat looking in the background there. So one way I could do that is just go into my dodge tool and just lighten it up a little bit. It's a little too bright. Just on the edge a little bit. Problem with that is you're bringing your eye to the background. So if it's too strong, your eyes are going to be focused on the background instead of the character. So it's a fine line to tread. So I'll just go real light with it. Nothing too fancy. Good enough. And this I'll just merge down with that. The fence I'll merge down with that. Like that. Alright, I'm just about done. And next thing I'll do is I could have all these separate. Oh, this layer here. Reduce the opacity. It's a little too strong. Oh yeah, and I have a nice tree. I'll have to find out where that tree is. I think it's right here, maybe? Yeah, right there it is. So if I have the tree there, it's going to look really weird. Put the tree here, you lose the cornering of the fence if you had it on the inside, but outside there it's okay. But that's an awkward spot for it because it's right next to the ear. This is a better spot for it, like right there. And I learned that within photography class. Yeah, that looks kind of cool. I like that. What it does is by putting it on the edge here, your eye no longer goes up and down like if it was here and then over here. It actually brings your eye over here and then it leads it back to the dog. So that's about composition in terms of how to lay out your picture and where you want your objects in the frame. Now the lighting on that is fine. I'm not going to change that because it's a little closer. Alright, I do want to add a sun beam into this picture, and then it'll be in the background. So let me pull that up really quick. And the light, I have to reverse this, layer, transform, flip horizontally, like that, and then put it up there, and really bring out the size of it, like that. You could actually bring it right up front, in front of the dog, but you risk losing some features. There's a bit of grayness to it, so let me colorize that light and increase the saturation. Something like that looks good, I think. Right now, you have no sense of what that is over there, so maybe something like that. Yeah, that'll be good right there. It's hardly, you can hardly tell right now. Alright, and that shadow underneath the dog, let me fix that a little bit. It's a little too smooth, so let me go in here and soften it up. Actually, there's a quicker way to do that. Select the shadow like that. Otherwise it'll be there all day. Go to Gasson Blur, however that's pronounced. Oh, see, it's not working. Alright, well, let me save this. Maybe it'll work then. See, right now the background really works with the dog in terms of the shading of it and the tone and the lighting of it, but I'm not finished just yet. Alright, are we back yet? Here we go. This must be like 2 hours now, 2.5 hours. We're still not getting a response from the tool. It's just not working yet, so I gotta keep going back, exit out. I don't know why it does this. See, this is supposed to be highlighted. It's some weird effect. Like, I can't do anything here. None of the buttons work until finally it says, oh, okay, well now I'll start working. It's still not working yet. And I'm on the right layer. But yeah, it's real weird. I think it's only when I record. This rarely ever happens otherwise. Actually, I think it started when I got this new pen pad. Maybe that's part of it. There, I think finally, there it is. It worked. I mean, it took like 10 tries or whatever to get that to work. So it's at the level I want. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, it's a little better. Alright, well, good enough. No, actually that's not what I wanted. I want it stronger. Maybe something like that. But I don't want that layering going on there. There's like 2 shades of the shadow. I messed up on that. I should probably just delete the shadow completely. That actually looks a little better there. But I lost some of the shadow. So let me go back in and just keep going with it. See what happens. Alright, so here we go, back into the shadow. Yeah, that looks better. Alright, now I have to just fine-tune this a little bit, like that. Make it look like the tail's being affected. Yeah, I guess that's okay. Alright, so this is just about done. I have to check the rock, make sure that is at the right angle there. Let's see what it looks like reversed. Layer, flip. Yeah, that's better because the shadow's on this side and it pulls the eye towards the dog. Alright, so there it is. I'm just going to add a little shadow to the front here. That's what I wanted to do. Such a simple solution, but I wasn't even thinking about it. So I'll increase the scale of the pen to the brush to there. Just add that right there, and look at that. Immediately you get a nice shadow to it that really brings your eye to this point where the dog is. You could even do that up here if you want, but I think that looks fine. Alright, so now I have to decide, do I want to blend all this together so I could actually, let me do a duplicate image. Let me save it first. I think I'm going on 2.5 hours here. I'm going to have to split this video up. Alright, so there's that. It's still saving. Oh yeah, I want to blur the dog a little bit. Filter, blur. Otherwise it's too sharp. It looks weird when you look up close. Yeah, there we go. See how that smoothed it out? Otherwise you get these jagged, sharp, pixelated edges and it just looks a little weird. But yeah, that looks better. Yeah, I like the way this turned out. Now I'll just add the, see how the blue light looks really nice on there? You could add probably green on there, but I'm not worried about it right now. Oh yeah, I wanted to duplicate this whole character, I'm sorry, a whole image. Image duplicate. And now here's a neat little trick. You could have everything visible all at once. Press shift and press the button again and everything highlights all at once. Now eliminate the layer you don't want. Actually like that. Now I'll do merge visible layers, so I just get like a flat layer here. Oh, there it is. Like, did it respond to what I was doing there? Alright, there it is, a flat layer. I'll pull that in here. Let's see if it drops perfectly. Nope. It messed it up. I don't know how that happened. Alright, here's a trick. Select all, edit, copy. Oh, that's why. Alright, I'll go here, I'll do edit, paste. Let's see what happens. It's a new layer. Perfect. It put it exactly where the old one was. And that's because I selected all, which made it within that limit. So now that I have that, I could play with the colors of it. So let's say I thought it was a little too dull looking with the color. I could go to brightness contrast. Now I could go like that. Wow, look how that really brought it out. That's so cool. And I could make it a little lighter. Yeah, I like that. Right here, I'm really blending the dog in with the environment, so it's not just the dog, it's the environment too. Now a bone over here would be cute to have for a dog, like a little milk bone or treat or whatever kind of bone for the dog as a treat. Alright, so that background, I like that better, and it did it all at once. I didn't have to go to each layer and play around with it. Next thing I'll do is the dodge tool, increase the scale and just highlight some of this over here so it's not so flat looking. Maybe highlight right back there and really bring your eye to that part right behind the dog. Brings your eye right to the dog, and then maybe up here just a little bit brighter there. Yeah, that's cool. I like that. And then here, maybe brighten that up a little. But there we go. And of course, this is bright and eye-catching up here, but there's just a cloud there, so it's no big deal. And your eye comes right back here to the ear. The ear catches here in the air. There it is. But I'm pretty satisfied with the way it turned out right now. I'll save it. And I'll just add my name to it really quick. I'm sure there are things that I could go back in and improve later. And this looks a little flat over here. This needs to be brighter. So let me do that right now before I add my name to it. Go right in here with my dodge tool and really crank out the brightness. Make sure I'm on the right layer here. It just looks really flat, so I want to bring it out. It's interesting, it's actually affecting the black line now. Before it couldn't do it because there was no texture to it, but now it really works. Alright, so I can highlight that a little, get rid of some of the effect there. But yeah, that's better right there. Alright, and I guess I could go back in and see what this would look like. Yeah, I think that looks pretty cool. Alright, so there it is. Now I have to get a sense of, is that what I was going for? It's pretty cute. I like the look of it. I'll probably add like a little bone right there. But before I'll do that later. I'm not going to do that now. So there's a close-up of the dog. And now I'll just put my name down here. Oh, those rocks look a little rough. One quick solution for that is just go blur. Like I can see a little pixelation on there when I was creating those for this movie I did. There we go, that's a little better. Next thing I'll do is new layer, transparent, and I'll put my name in there. 100% original drawing. All these elements that you see here were created from prior work that I did. And then let's see, it's April 2021 today. Today is actually April 11th, I think. And then here, because the line didn't cut quite the way I wanted it to, I'm going to add some variation to it. And the blur tool, smudge tool, is too big. See, this is like unnecessary, but I'm just doing it just for the fun of it. I got really carried away, but I do like the way it turned out. It took a while, and it was a lot of fun though, so you think about it, this is how life is spent when you're doing something creative. You're just immersed in this process, and it's really fun. I really, really like it. I'm glad I have the ability to be an artist. I'm really happy about that ability, and to be able to use your talent in a fun way is a great thing. I'm really grateful for that. Alright, so I think it turned out pretty good. And I'll zoom in just a little bit, like that. And that's it. I'll save it. And thanks for watching. Feel free to comment, subscribe, like, and share. And until my next video, thanks.